How could they come up with such nonsensical gossip? Although I didn't know the reason, I still made up an excuse. We are not familiar with each other. Mr. Liu may have accidentally saved the picture from my moments. I don't believe this myself. I never post selfies on my moments. Fortunately, my permission's limited to 3 days, so they can't find any clues even if they want to verify it. But I don't know why there are photos of me in Aiden's phone. After a quick chat, I breathed a sigh of relief. Not long after, an unknown number called. Hello. The other party didn't speak, but I could hear steady breathing on the other side of the microphone. My heart skipped a beat and I suddenly realized who was calling. In the past, when I received calls from him, I was always so nervous that my heart was beating wildly. But now, when I answered the phone again, I touched my chest and found it was beating very regularly. Very peaceful. I didn't say anything. The past ended the moment I boarded the plane and it no longer occupied my mind. He still didn't speak. Wrong number? There was silence on the other side, except for the sound of breathing which had become heavier. I sighed. Mr. Liu, I thought I had made myself clear enough. I hope you won't bother me anymore. Please respect me for once. After that, I hung up the phone. This is probably the first time in 5 years that my tone has been so bad. How can I not feel resentful? Even clay figures have tempers. I am also a human being and I get angry. Wasn't I sad when he said that I was just a nobody and couldn't enter the Liu family's gate? How could I remain calm when my lover belittled me like this? He doesn't understand that I am a person first and then any other role. I have a strong personality and have always completed the projects on hand very well. I have never missed overtime at the company, and it is normal for me to write plans in the study until midnight. Even in a high-pressure working environment, I can still find time to cook porridge for him and take care of the housework. I was very obedient. He said we should go to Lijiang ancient town on the weekend. Even if I was too busy with my work, I would stay up a few more nights on weekdays to squeeze out time. I would stay up all night studying and write thousands of words of notes just to choose a suitable birthday gift for him. I would confirm his physical examination report with the doctor every year, understand the fluctuations in the data, make a daily plan, and arrange a diet for him. But 5 years have passed, and in his eyes I am still a woman who is not presentable. I tried my best to stand in front of him, but I was still as humble as dust. It's not like I don't know that we have no results. But hearing his own final words brought our story to an end. I will feel pain too. Just like I told myself 99 times not to hold out hope, not to desire things that don't belong to me, because it will hurt, but there was only one time when I quietly heard it in my ear. Maybe? I carefully guard that secret expectation, not letting others discover it, and not letting myself discover it. Just like when I was a kid, even though I knew I didn't do well in the exam, I still looked forward to seeing my name on a higher list. The unknown is always exciting. But I don't want to expect it anymore. In the game of the superiors, they make the rules and they dominate everything. He can contact me at will, but I can't disturb him. How unfair! Aiden might have feelings for me, but that is the love a master has for his pet. It is quite interesting to tease him in his spare time. But I am a human being. I have my own joys and sorrows. Why should I suppress my emotions and stay by his side like an obedient pet? I have worked so hard to come this far, not just to be someone's toy. The sky was dotted with stars, and I lay in front of the French window counting them until the sky was filled with light and everything became empty. It's all over, and I should let it go. Autumn goes and winter comes, and in the blink of an eye, the end of the year is approaching. Yuan Luo and I became more and more familiar with each other, and I no longer refused him to enter my life. We would go to the streets and alleys to explore shops together, sit in rocking chairs by the lake to feed pigeons, go to the supermarket together and buy out all the cucumber-flavored potato chips on the shelves except for one pack. There were always 2 days a week when we would go for a morning run together, breathe the fresh air, and feel the fragrance of the earth. I love so much. We were making dumplings together on New Year's Eve, and I bit into a coin. His eyes were full of smiles. It seems that everything will go well for my sister in the new year. I swallowed the dumpling and said, "I'll give you some good luck." He lowered his head and took a bite, then raised his head in surprise. I said with a smug look on my face, "I also wish you all the best in the new year, peace and happiness." He spat out a coin, chewed the dumplings, tears welling up in his eyes. "Isn't there only one coin?" I picked up a dumpling and shook my head. "Good things come in pairs. What's the point of leaving one out? Let's share the good fortune together." He laughed too. After dinner, we took a walk downstairs to help digest the food. I rubbed my hands and blew out a breath, watching the children rolling snowballs and playing while walking. A touch of warmth embraced my hand. He seemed a little uneasy, his hands were shaking, and he didn't even hold it in the right position. I looked at the gleaming street lights and smiled softly, then I lowered my head, adjusted my position, and held his hand back. As soon as I looked up, I met his starry eyes, in which my smile was reflected. His voice was a little hoarse, with a barely perceptible tremor. "Let's be together." I tilted my head. "Okay." I was suddenly hugged by someone and my face was buried in his scarf, which was furry and had a strong smell of caramel chestnuts. When he let me go, there were still tears in the corners of his eyes. I wiped it off with a smile. "Don't cry on New Year's Day. It feels like a dream." I pretended to be angry. "How can there be such a beautiful dream?" He took me into his arms again, rocking me and coaxing me. Yuan Luo is like the scorching sun. Its light is dazzling, but when it falls on the body, it brings deep warmth. No one can resist the sun. It was already late when I got home. There was a missed call on the phone. I crossed it out directly. I opened the blue software and searched. What are some great couples tourist spots in Jiking? After thinking for a while, I changed the question. Where do you recommend couples go for travel during the new year? Yuan Luo and I have a stable relationship. This year we went to Liuxing Village in Yining, Bodhi Temple in Mengshi, Daizong Lake and Peach Blossom Spring in Yancheng. We listened to conch opera, tasted green mangoes dipped in chili peppers, sweet soup dumplings, and spicy stir-fried chili peppers that were so spicy that it made you feel like your soul is leaving your body. We felt the human customs and charm nurtured by different waters and soils. When you don't want to move, just stay at home and put on a few documentaries. If you want to watch them, watch them. If you don't want to watch them, just use them as background music. Everyone does something comfortable. Being together is happy, and being apart is freedom. I finally understand that a good relationship can make people happy both physically and mentally. In the early spring of the following year, Yuan Luo proposed to me. It was very cold when the ice and snow melted, but whether it was the warm applause and sincere blessings from the people around me, or his gentle gaze on me, they all made me feel a warm current in my heart. I agreed. After a dizzy moment, he put me down and laughed so hard that he couldn't stop. Teacher Lee smiled and patted his shoulder. You guys should be well. He nodded heavily, and Teacher Lee also showed his 8 satisfied teeth. I looked at them in astonishment and nudged Yuan Luo with my elbow. Do you know each other? Yuan Luo was gathering my scarf to make sure no skin was exposed. Without even looking up, he said, I know her. Teacher Lee is also my homeroom teacher. Ah. My eyes widened. Are you also studying in No. 1 high school? He glanced at me resentfully and said, Yeah, since you didn't ask, I didn't mention it. Feeling guilty, I changed the subject. When I got home that night, I asked him, Aren't you from South City? Why did you come to Jiking to study? When I was little, I was raised by my grandparents. My hometown is here, so I went to school here. He gave me a thoughtful look. When you were chasing others, I was also watching you. I got the point right away. You knew me from school? I know you. Do you think I fell in love with you at first sight? He asked as he pulled me into his arms and leaned on my shoulder. A faint laughter sounded in my ears. But I did fall in love with you at first sight. It turns out that Yuan Luo had seen me as early as when I was in high school. At that time, I was sitting by the window. When he went to the cafeteria to get food, he would see me taking a nap on the table. He felt that I looked familiar. Later, when he saw me splashing cold water on my face in the sink in the middle of winter, he thought I was a ruthless person. Later, you didn't sit there anymore, but I couldn't help but look at that window, looking for your seat. Then I realized that maybe I fell in love with you at first sight. I didn't expect there was such a connection. Thinking about myself at that time, wearing a shabby school uniform, holding a pile of books all day, and not being talkative, I thought he was exaggerating. How can I make you fall in love with me at first sight? He pursed his lips and raised his head, his eyes instantly serious. Do you think you are not good enough? You are the first in the grade, you have participated in many school activities, your model essays were posted on the bulletin board for commendation, and your oral English videos were even put in the junior high school as examples. My classmates all said they want to learn from you, and the old man you sent to the hospital even had a banner sent to the school. How can you think you are not worthy of being loved? He stared at me stubbornly with his red eyes, and hot tears fell on the back of my hand. I wiped it and laughed. Why did you make yourself cry for no reason? No matter what I said, his tears were the armor that protected my soft heart. I smiled helplessly and leaned over to give him a kiss. This comfort was very effective. He stopped crying and muttered, "It's just not worth it for you. You're such a good person." My eyes are also a little sore. In fact, it's not that no one says I'm a good child, but I always feel that they are comforting me. People often say that parents love their children the most, and how likable can I be when even my parents dislike me? But his perspective made me see a different self. It turned out that in places where I couldn't see, there were people silently paying attention to me. They also appreciated my strengths and regarded me as a role model. Thanks. I closed my eyes and leaned against his chest. Our heartbeats resonated in unison. He patted my back gently, and his warm breath fanned my earlobe. Bring your household registration book and ID card tomorrow. I opened my eyes suddenly. You are waiting for me here? He rubbed my shoulder, and his voice softened instantly. Is it not possible? I thought my sister would really want to be with me. The soft hair was tied up on the side of my neck, bulging. I patted his arm and said, I grant your permission. He raised his eyes and stared at me. His two deer-like black eyeballs were filled with a clear spring. He didn't move and looked a little dull. I ruffled his head, and he seemed to suddenly react and ran around the room like a 3-year-old child. So I saw him trip over his left foot and fall onto the sofa. I take that back. Even 3-year-olds are not as crazy as him. The night I got the marriage certificate, I posted on WeChat Moments. All blessings 99. Yuan Luo is very busy, he is preparing for the wedding. I call him King Gigi. He looked up from a pile of notes. What kind of wedding would your sister like? I smacked my head in annoyance. I haven't thought about it. But as long as the groom is you, I will probably like it. I tried hard not to laugh and said the sweet words from the internet. Yuan Luo was also amused by me and came over and bit my lips. Me too. But he turned around and continued to do his homework and gave me a task to find a wedding style that I liked. But I am telling the truth. As long as he is the groom, it is enough. I do not attach much importance to the sense of ceremony, because I am always asked to do so. I know how unpleasant it feels, so I am not willing to ask others. But Yuan Luo rejected me righteously and looked at me seriously. But I'm not someone else. I'm your husband, legally. Only when you make demands on me and express your emotions do I know what you're thinking. So, tell me everything, whether it's good or bad. It was as if the fog was cleared away, revealing the scene inside, and I smiled with joy. Okay. Then I'll go find out and tell you my answer. Thank you for your hard work. After rewarding her with a kiss, I walked into the room with a red face and lifted up my drooping collar. I said I would do my homework, but I almost went astray. Young man, you have such poor concentration. I picked up my phone to search, but found the screen full of missed calls, all from different numbers. Have I disturbed the telemarketing den? Another call popped up and I accidentally clicked on it. There was silence on the other side. I am confused. Even if I am given the opportunity, will they not promote it? Just as I was about to hang up, a man's deep voice came from the phone. NN. I was shocked and got goosebumps all over. Could it be that he was the one making all these calls? Mr. Liu? He responded with a nasal voice. I haven't paid any attention to him in the 2 years since I returned to Jiking. I don't know why he called me. There is nothing to talk about between us. Anne, please come back. He said with a somewhat aggrieved tone. I heard the sound of a bottle falling to the ground, and I guess he was drunk and crazy. I hung up the phone and added these numbers to my blacklist one by one. Is Lu's family in trouble? He actually has the time to do this. It's crazy. I have always adhered to the principle of parting ways amicably, but apparently some people don't think so. One day when I was shopping, I suddenly received a text message. I'll wait for you in your dream time. I thought it was a restaurant promotion text message. The next day when I went downstairs to prepare for a morning run, I found a man in a suit and tie standing by the flower bed. He stood straight, with a pale arm exposed from his sleeves. A long-lost shudder surged into my heart, and I almost couldn't recognize myself. But when he raised his head, it was indeed Aiden's face. His eyes were as if a lion had seen its prey, so deep that I almost dared not to look him in the face. I had no way to avoid it and just stood there in a daze. Aiden stopped in front of me. His eyes were bloodshot and dark circles were under his eyes. He seemed very tired. At least I had never seen him, who always paid attention to his image, appear in front of people like this. He looked me over calmly. You've gotten fatter. My face darkened, knowing he was telling the truth. What are you doing here? His eyes swept across my frowning brows, and his gaze was like a deep whirlpool, with no bottom in sight. I'll take you back. I was stunned. Where should I go back? I suddenly realized what was happening and laughed sarcastically. Go back? To interfere with your relationship and become a mistress? Sorry, Mr. Liu, I can't take on this kind of business. Please find someone else. His eyebrows were slightly raised, as if he didn't expect me to refuse, and he began to explain. I didn't marry Zhou Shu, it was just a cover-up. In Aiden's story, the Liu family's power struggle was aimed at him as the one in power. In order to protect me, he deliberately pretended not to care about me and released the news of his engagement to cover it up. Now that the matter has been resolved, he feels at ease to come and see me. I called you, but you ignored me. I smiled, looked at the flowers behind him, and shook my head. It doesn't matter anymore. For me, no matter what the reason is, the damage has been done and it will not be changed by belated confession. Aiden's deep eyes revealed a trace of doubt. Important? How can it not be important? I bought the diamond ring you liked before, and I didn't lose the previous one. He seemed to have thought of something, took out the box from his pocket, knelt on the ground solemnly, and raised the ring. Kiao En, marry me. The slender and smooth hands were trembling slightly. The leader of the Liu family has always been swift and decisive in his decisions. I couldn't imagine how nervous he would be. But he really knelt on one knee and looked up at me in a way I had never imagined. This scene was my secret dream when I was a girl, but when it actually happened before my eyes, I no longer had the same expectations as before. His expression remained calm, without a trace of emotion, just like his unfathomable thoughts, but there was a certainty in his eyes, as if he was sure that I would agree to him. The edge of the diamond ring on my ring finger was against my flesh, causing a slight sting. I thought of Yuan Luo, who was so nervous when he proposed to me. His eyes were like those of a puppy, bright and full of expectation. I then also noticed that I was distracted and frowned, but didn't say anything. I heard footsteps behind me, and the person who came smiled and stepped in front of me, pushing Aiden away. Sorry bro, my wife doesn't take second wives. Although Yuan Luo was smiling, there was no trace of smile in his eyes. I don't know how long he listened. I held his hand and it was gently held back, and my heart calmed down. I then picked up the ring calmly. Even at this moment, he looked like a wandering aristocrat, without a trace of nobility. The gloom between his brows had not yet dissipated. Are you really married? I held Yuan Luo's hand, pointed at the diamond ring on his ring finger, and looked at him intently. Do you want me to take down the marriage certificate? It seemed that my questioning was too sharp. Aiden was stunned. He looked at me with confusion in his eyes. He didn't seem to have anticipated this scenario. He didn't expect that I, who was cautious and timid, would reject him, and he didn't expect that I, who was in love with him, would get married. But why should I wait for you? People change, and the 3-foot-thick ice doesn't form overnight. I calmly said to him. Aiden, this is not the key point. We are not suitable. I like people who fight alongside me, not those who leave me behind under the pretext of doing good for me and then give me alms halfway through. I don't like being kept in the dark and fooled. I don't want such self-righteous love. Maybe you think you have paid a lot, but I can't understand it. I looked back at Yuan Luo. He looked a little serious. I pinched his palm and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. I turned to Aiden and said seriously, I am very grateful to you. Maybe you don't remember that you once sponsored a group of students in Jiking, and I was one of them. That bonus changed my destiny. It strengthened my direction and led me to you. I don't regret meeting you. If it weren't for you, I might still be in the mountains, living a muddled life. He was a little stunned, his eyes were complicated and his brows were slightly furrowed, as if he was searching for information about what I said. I laughed. I am just a passerby in his life, and forgetting is the norm. Aiden looked serious and stared at me. You really don't want to go back with me? I stepped back and bowed deeply to him. This is my answer. As far as I could see, his knuckles were clenched white, veins were knotted between his wrists, and his arms were trembling slightly. He was trying his best to suppress something. But when I looked up, he seemed to suddenly understand my determination and forced a smile on the corner of his mouth. He rarely smiles at me, and it's a forced smile, but still very nice. It's just that I'm no longer someone who appreciates it. His lips were pursed until they turned pale, and his voice sounded as if it was forced out of his throat, extremely dry. I wish you happiness. I nodded. I will. When we left, he was still standing there holding the ring, which was shining with silver light, and he kissed it gently, and his originally tall and upright body seemed to collapse in an instant. I never saw him again for the rest of my life. On the path by the lake, Yuan Luo and I ran side by side, and he was a little uninterested. I poked him. What's wrong? Are you jealous? He glanced at me and curled his lips. No. Without waiting for me to ask, he just said to himself, I'm just a little sad. The harm could have been avoided, but you had to choose this way, hurting others and yourself. He feels sorry for me. I winked at him and made a heart shape with my hands. Forget about it, let's think about one of the world's 10 major problems: what to eat today. He was smiling, and the spring light outlined the beads of sweat falling down his cheeks, shining with golden light. I sneakily took 2 steps forward, turned back and shouted at him. Whoever finishes the last lap first gets to decide today's menu. No fear. I'll definitely pick the dish you like. Then why don't you say that I will choose your favorite dishes too? Whoever finishes first will be on top. Be opposed to. Invalid objection. I den extra. The first time I met Joan was on a rainy day. My friend and I were sitting in a cafe discussing something. Outside the window, people were hurrying around, their legs and feet constantly moving in the heavy rain. An old man suddenly slipped and fell on the side of the road. The little boy beside him cried helplessly, and his umbrella was blown away and fell to the side. I stirred the coffee in the cup and watched the people around me hurry by. The friend sneered. People are so cold-hearted, who would be stupid enough to help others? I raised my eyelids, agreeing with what he said. However, the next second, a figure running over slapped me in the face. It was a young girl. She trotted to the boy, handed him her umbrella, and then helped the old man up. She seemed to be saying something to the old man. The rain hit her body, forming a stream and flowing down her calves under her skirt, but she didn't care at all. Her eyes were smiling and looked particularly bright. I swallowed a mouthful of coffee and didn't agree with my friend's mocking words. When I saw her again, she was preparing for an interview. She seemed very nervous, holding a small bag in her hand and clasping her hands together in worship. I saw her again when I went downstairs. She seemed to be doing well, and there was still that bright light in her eyes. It wasn't until I saw her photo on the list of newcomers that I asked Secretary Zhang to bring her up and proposed a deal. As I expected, she didn't refuse. The days that followed were very dull. Although there was one more person in the house, she was taciturn and very quiet, and sometimes I even ignored her existence. She is very well behaved. Sometimes when she was roughed up in bed, she would stammer and dare not make a sound. She would just bite her lips and look at me with tears in her eyes. I once suspected that the girl with a bright smile in the rain was a dream. 3 months was up and she was gone. The ruthless attitude made me question my own charm, so I found her and took her back. In a routine life, it's okay to add a little surprise occasionally. She was very considerate and I couldn't find any fault with her. She never disturbed me when I was working, let me sleep in when I was at home, readily accepted any changes in plans, made no unreasonable requests, and never asked for any gifts. I am undoubtedly comfortable with her and I am willing to continue this deal. 3 years passed unknowingly, and a friend finally enlightened me. I have been following you for several years without any status, but I am afraid that what I want is your heart. I subconsciously rejected this possibility, but when I recalled her gentle and affectionate gaze, I had a feeling that he was right. I hate mixing transactions with relationships. Those people once approached me under the pretext of doing business, but in the end they attempted to take the position of the mistress of the Liu family. I can't imagine her turning into the hideous and greedy faces of those people in my memory. I ignored her and didn't go home for a week. After we got back, I deliberately took her to a party and noticed that her face suddenly turned pale. I believed that with her intelligence, she could understand what I meant. I will no longer stay with any woman who once attracted me. But I am still patient with her, so I gave her a chance. I pretended to be ignorant and covered up the matter. She was very considerate and took care of everything for me, and I was very satisfied. I didn't notice her gradual withdrawal of affection. Later, my third uncle attempted to seize power, and after I had made my arrangements, I suddenly thought of her. If she falls into the hands of Uncle Sam, it will definitely disrupt my plans. So I decided to send her away, but when she learned about my engagement, she took the initiative to resign and proposed a breakup. Her departure was just what I wanted, but seeing her acting so businesslike, I felt uncomfortable. After I asked the question that asked her to stay, I was stunned. Fortunately, she didn't notice and refused straightforwardly. She was still so obedient, and even her choices were exactly as I expected. I think if you still don't want to settle down after things are resolved, bringing her back would be a good option. Her photo was accidentally exposed. In order to cover up our relationship, I used Joshua to hype it up again. Uncle Sam obviously thought I was just playing around and didn't take Kiao and seriously. After the incident, I took the photo back from the recycling bin. I took this sneak shot, it's very cute. I suddenly had an urge to see her, but at the height of the storm, I could only hold it in. So I called her to hear her voice. But she accused me of disturbing her. I didn't care too much. She is probably still angry, just let her calm down. Someone was reporting on her life, and I wasn't surprised to hear that someone was pursuing her. She is very good, and anyone with eyes can see this pearl. But she has loved me for 5 years, and I believe she will wait for me. I was exhausted after a day at the Liu family. When I got home and looked at the empty living room, I remembered that in previous years she would always decorate the house festively on New Year's Eve and welcome me back with a smile. A feeling of depression and emptiness suddenly arose in my heart. I called as I felt like, but no one answered. I didn't realize the change in situation until someone reported her new relationship. But I just thought she was trying to make me angry. But when I saw the picture of them looking at each other under the moon, the eyes that I was very familiar with were being shown to another man. I couldn't ignore that she had started a new life. I tried my best to suppress the anxiety in my heart, but she never answered the phone calls I made. Friends who are in the know asked me, "It's just for fun, why are you taking it so seriously?" The voice was harsh. I didn't like his tone, as if he was treating Joan as a toy for entertainment. However, after my subconscious reaction, I was stunned. Wasn't I just playing around? I like her looking at me, I like her talking to me, I like her resting her head on my shoulder, I like the warm morning light falling on her cheek and the slightly upturned curve of her lips. It seems that I also have feelings for Joan. I began to rethink our relationship. I thought I should take her back after this, without any transaction involved, and have a serious relationship with her like ordinary people. But things didn't turn out as I expected. I sat there for a long time when I heard the news that she was proposed to. I never thought about getting married in the past 30 years, and my friends always thought that I would choose a business marriage, but my empire is strong enough and does not need to rely on marriage to expand. Assume the wife is her. I find that I am not opposed to this hypothesis. There is even a secret joy seeping out from deep within. I laughed. It turns out that as long as it's her, I can accept it. When I heard the news that she had obtained her marriage certificate, my first reaction was disbelief. Then there was a surge of panic. What if? I was anxious and I wanted to see her. I asked someone to book the earliest flight and went to the brand we had visited before to order a ring overnight. Thinking back to the time when her sparkling eyes looked at the display case, my heart ached. What was I doing at that time? I deliberately ignored her expectant look and said to her, "You are not suitable." Why is it inappropriate? She is obviously the most suitable one. This time I want to tell her in person that we are the best match and you deserve it. But she doesn't want me anymore. I waited in the restaurant all day. I think she's probably still mad at me. I was waiting for her downstairs at her house. I looked at the angular diamond ring in my hand and imagined the scene of her wearing it and smiling gently. Gorgeous. But she didn't want to. On her fingers were traces of another man's presence. She said she was very happy. Even after I explained, her eyes remained calm. She wasn't angry, she wasn't hiding it, she really didn't care. A sense of nothingness, that things were out of control, surrounded me, and I was unable to make any judgment. I think I guessed wrong. There was a look of joy on their brows like newlyweds, and they were obviously very satisfied with each other. But I felt it was extremely dazzling. If jealousy is not caused by love, what is it? I can't think of it. I watched her bow to me, blood welling up in my throat, and I didn't know what to say. It turns out we have met each other a long time ago. It turns out that we have never been destined to be together. You were running towards me. It's my fault that I took that step too late and you've already left. I was overwhelmed with regret. With a dark heart, I looked into her clear, bright eyes and managed to squeeze out words of blessing. I persuaded myself that it was true that I liked her, but she rejected me and asked me to beg her to come back, but I couldn't do it. Then forget it. She is not the only woman in the world. There are many girls who can cook porridge, many girls who can buy gadgets, many women who will listen to me, and many girls who can do everything. Why should I hang myself on her? After returning to Shanghai, I focused all my attention on work. I thought I could let it go. But when it was late at night and everyone was asleep, I subconsciously wanted to hold the hot milk in my hand, but there was nothing in it. I woke up in countless lonely nights, feeling cold beside me. No longer did that gentle voice ask tentatively, "Mr. Liu?" I realized later that there were traces of her everywhere. She is like water, sneaking into my life silently and without a trace. When people discover her, she has already penetrated every corner. A fish out of water dies. Several years have passed, and I still can't let it go. I have also tried to contact many people, but I always remember her ease in the meeting and her warm body leaning in my arms. She is irreplaceable. I realized. I love her and I can't live without her. I don't want to torture myself. Since I can't forget it, I'll just get it. This time I will love her well, be a mature lover, respect her preferences, and give her the best I have. I will tell you I love you many times, and spend the rest of my life slowly telling you the emotions that are suppressed in my heart. You don't have to panic or be timid. You don't have to be cautious or try to please me. You just need to give me a kiss sooner or later, then smile in my arms and do whatever you want. This time, I'll come to you. I'll do great, I promise you. The most urgent task is to deal with that man. I found the person and suddenly wanted to see how she was doing. They settled in Beijing, and she continued to do her old job. She was very capable, and the company's treatment was better than Liu's. They had a child, a lively and lovely little girl. When I saw her photo, I felt inexplicably close to her. If we had been together, our children would probably be a few years older than she is. I really want to see them. On impulse, I came to Beijing. I threw away my reserve and hid among the teddy bears in the amusement park, watching their every move. She still looks the same as before, but her brows have added the charm of time. The little girl is as cute as in the photo, with a round face and is very likable. They had an argument. The little girl refused to eat her lunchbox and was eyeing her instant noodles. She slurped up the noodles and gave the little girl a taste of the noodle soup. The little girl squinted her eyes in satisfaction and she also smiled happily. A man in the distance ran towards them and handed each of them a glass of juice. She pouted and asked him why it wasn't cold. He seemed to say something that made her laugh. The smile between his brows was the most unrestrained I had ever seen. It was like a heavy hammer shattering my beautiful dream. I stood there in a daze. The kid next to me seemed to be pushing me to play with him, but I couldn't hear him clearly. Suddenly, I remembered that rainy day. She stumbled into my world. The bright smile in his eyes is just like what is before his eyes. My heart felt as if it was being pressed down by a huge rock, making it hard to breathe. I don't remember how I got to the corner or how I dialed the phone. When I regained consciousness, I watched the backs of the three of them as they walked away. I told myself, forget it. You are already very happy. Never mind. I let you go. I don't want to see you cry. Maybe I will miss you for the rest of my life and never forget my longing for you. But that's all my business. The ring did not wait for its owner, and I missed my lover. Joan, I wish you a smooth, peaceful, and happy life.